Today, we're going to dive into the timeless wisdom of Psalms 97 through 101. And our goal isn't just to understand these ancient words, but to really see how their core message about God's authority and our own personal transformation, how that can be practically applied in our lives, right here and now. So, let's get into it. Everything, and I mean everything we're about to talk about, starts with this one powerful statement. This isn't just an opening line. It's the bedrock for all 5 of these Psalms. It sets up a fundamental reality. There's a king in charge of the universe, and knowing that should be a source of real, lasting joy.
So before we can even begin to think about how we should respond, we have to first get a sense of who it is we're responding to. These Psalms start by painting this absolutely awe-inspiring picture of God's authority. It's majestic, and honestly, it's meant to be a little overwhelming.
The language the psalmist uses here is just, wow. It's incredibly powerful, and that's on purpose. We read about fire going before him, lightning lighting up the world, and mountains literally melting like wax. This isn't just pretty poetry. It's an attempt to use the most powerful things in nature to give us even a small glimpse of God's authority and his holiness.
This image is so profound. When we first hear clouds and darkness, our minds might go to something negative or scary. But in this context, it's actually a metaphor for God's incredible, unapproachable holiness. It's this idea that his purity is so intense, so brilliant, that it has to be veiled from our sight, because in our human state, we just can't take it all in.
So, when you're confronted with that kind of majesty, what is the natural human response? Well, according to the Psalms, it's worship. Coming face to face with God's authority isn't supposed to crush us. It's meant to pull a very specific, heartfelt reaction out of us. And this right here is such a crucial point. God is always the one who starts. Our worship, our songs, our praise, they're never the first step. They are always a reaction to something God has already done or revealed. We see his amazing work, and we respond out of that sense of awe.
Psalm 98 actually lays this pattern out for us really clearly. First, God acts. He does something marvelous. Second, he shows us what he's done. He reveals his salvation to everyone. And then, only after that, as a direct result, we respond with a new song of praise. It's a beautiful, simple flow.
Okay, so we've talked about the outward action of worship. Now let's shift to the internal mindset that really keeps it going. Because a true understanding of who God is, well, it naturally grows a deep and lasting sense of gratitude in our lives.
This verse from Psalm 100, this is the anchor for that whole mindset. It's such a simple truth, but it can change everything. We are not self-made people. We are the created, and there is a creator. Just letting that one fact truly sink into our hearts has the power to reshape how we see everything. Our lives, our stuff, our purpose.
And you can really see the contrast here. If you operate from this belief that we made ourselves, the natural result is a life that revolves around you, which often leads to selfishness and worry. But if you embrace the truth that he has made us, the whole perspective flips. You start to see everything you have as a gift, and that frees you up to live with real generosity and thanksgiving.
And what about those days when gratitude feels impossible, when our circumstances are just hard? Well, Psalm 100 gives us these rock-solid reasons to be thankful anyway. Our gratitude doesn't have to be based on our shifting emotions. It can be anchored in these unchanging truths about who God is, his goodness, his mercy, and his faithfulness. So this brings us to a really practical question. How does all this, understanding God's authority, responding in worship, having a mindset of gratitude, how does it actually change our daily choices? The psalmist makes a direct link. A genuine relationship with God begins to reshape what we love and what we hate.
This is such a powerful idea when it comes to spiritual growth. See, real worship isn't something you can just contain in 1 hour on a weekend. It starts to realign your heart all week long. The more we value God's holiness and goodness, the more we naturally start to dislike evil. Our own desires start to look more like his.
Now, that leads to a very real consideration. It's one thing to agree with the idea, but what does it actually look like to hate evil in a world that often treats it as normal? Well, the next psalm gives us a surprisingly specific guide.
Yeah, Psalm 101 reads almost like a list of personal resolutions. And these aren't vague goals, they are specific, actionable things for everyday life. Look how practical they are. Be careful about what you watch. Be wise about the company you keep. Guard your heart against arrogance and twisted thinking. This is literally a roadmap for a life that reflects God's character.
So this path of making conscious, daily choices, it's all leading somewhere. It's heading toward this ultimate goal, an aspiration that the psalmist David sets for himself, and by extension, for all of us.
A perfect way, a perfect heart. That's the goal. It's this declaration of wanting to live a life of complete integrity. And notice, not just out in public, but starting within my house, in that private space where our real character is shaped and put to the test.
But it is so important that we understand this the right way. This is not a demand for you to be flawless overnight. I mean, even David, the man who wrote these words, failed in some pretty big ways. And that reminds us that the pursuit of a perfect heart is a lifelong journey of growth, of repentance, and of depending on grace. It's about the direction your heart is pointed, not the perfection of every single step you take.
And so we end here. After looking at God's reign, our responsive worship, and the path of right living, the question comes back to us, personally. These Psalms offer a clear, high standard. They invite us to just pause and reflect. In the quiet moments of your life and in your public choices, what standard is truly guiding you?